Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds. So this is where I like to gather up everything that I've purchased over the past week and present it to you. And boy, did I have a big week last week with purchases, 27 total items, which breaks down into 18 CDs, 8 records, and 1 box set. So very good all around purchasing and music listening experience this past week, and so I'm going to get into all of that here in just a bit. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on really cool videos just like this with new music finds. All right, so as I like to do, I like to kick off with new releases, stuff that I picked up from this past week. And the first one up actually ended up being kind of a surprise to me at how good it turned out to be. It's the new Nils Lofgren Mountains album. Nils Lofgren being current and former member of Crazy Horse with Neil Young, and of course also the E Street Band with Bruce Springsteen. So of course that's how I really got into Nils. I was a fan of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. He was not rejoined into Crazy Horse at that time, so I didn't really pay much attention to the early era of Crazy Horse with Nils Lofgren. But I sort of got into him through Bruce Springsteen. So I would say, you know, if you were a fan of Bruce Springsteen, you're going to really like this album. To me, this album is on par with sort of the recent things that Bruce Springsteen has been doing. But I think it's actually better than the stuff that Neil Young has been turning out. I'm a big Neil Young fan, so that for me is something a lot to say there, that I actually think that's how good this album is. But it just connected with me right away. Initially, when I heard the lead single off it, it didn't do much. But again, a lot of times I wait and sort of reserve my take on an album until it drops and I can listen to it in its entirety. And for me, this one just works. So I'd highly recommend that one if you're at all a fan of Bruce Springsteen or Nils Lofgren. Now going to the other extreme here, we had some thrash metal get released by Voivod, Morgoth Tales. Very good album. It's re-recordings, or most of it I should say is, 9 of it is re-recordings of older songs from 84 up through 2003. And then we've got one new track, Morgoth Tales, the title track on here. And we've also got a cover song, Home, from Public Image Limited. What's cool about this is that on 2 of the re-recordings, we've got some former members of Voivod joining. We've got E-Force, former vocalist from the band, coming back in and doing the song Rise. And then we've got Rebel Robot, which features Jason Newsted of Metallica when he joined for that one album. But it's celebrating the band's 40th anniversary. So that was a cool release right there. This one came out a few weeks back, and I didn't give it much thought at the time, and I kind of kept eyeing it, and I finally decided to give it a listen, and it kind of blew my mind. So picked up the brand new Virgin Steel album. This one is The Passion of Dionysus, and I haven't really listened to them in a very long time. I think I got into them initially back in the very early 2000s. And I had 4 or 5 of their albums in my collection, but I kind of drifted away from that, and I would never really pull it out at different times. And this one, you know, the cover kind of grabbed me, and I thought, hey, let me just, you know, check it out and see where they're at today, kind of a thing. And it's the first track on here, the Gethsemane Effect. And that one just kind of blew my mind. Now, what I want to preference this with is I actually think it's the mix of it that did its thing for me on here. It's very raw and not overly produced, kind of a do-it-yourself sort of sound in it. So their early stuff is very well produced and polished and all of that sort of stuff. So to me, this does sound different than their early stuff. But I just really liked it, the mix of it. The vocals and the orchestration are very upfront. The drums are very far in the back, which I know wouldn't initially sound like something you might want, but it took the sort of heavy thrash element and made it not so heavy, yet still there, and allowed the orchestration and vocals to really shine on this. And for me at least, I thought that was kind of a very cool thing, something unique in terms of what I was not listening to at the time. So I gotta say, I highly recommend this. If you're ever a fan of Virgin Steel and you haven't checked them out for a while, or were on the fence about it, give it a listen. See if it moves you the way it moved me. All right, so moving on to other things that I purchased and picked up. Sort of like with the Virgin Steel, I had gotten back into more 80s metal and thrash and power metal and stuff of that nature, as you guys have seen with my heavy metal masterpiece videos and stuff like that. So I picked up this box set by Sinner called Born to Rock. It's got 4 albums in it, all of which are out of print or have been out of print for a very long time. So it was just cool to be able to get them back. So Danger Zone, it's got Touch of Sin, and I like these, the cardboard sleeve ones that, even though they're cardboard, you're getting the original album covers with them. Coming Out Fighting, and then Dangerous Charm. And all of these have a slight different sound to them because as they moved through the 80s, they sort of became, overproduced. The labels were looking for pop hits and stuff like that from them, so they kind of morphed into that. But me and my 80s sound, so I really like it. It starts off with the sort of power metal sounding, heavy metal, and then it moves into more of the pop metal sort of stuff. But all good, and glad to get. I like these little box sets that like I said, reproduce album covers and all that sort of stuff. And then it comes with a booklet in here that's got a history of the band and stuff like that. Okay, I made a trip to Factory Records and picked up some stuff. So 2 of the things being recent Richard Marx albums. And what did I say, recent? These are not recent, new for me, not recent at all. These were his first 2, 87 and this one was 89 or 90, but probably the 2 biggest albums by him. So Self-Titled and Repeat Offender. And this is just kind of growing on other things that I had picked up from Richard Marx recently. I started with Rush Street because I liked the song Hazard. It was kind of the only one that I could stomach at the time. And I decided to pick it up and buy it from the Dollar Cart. Turned out I really liked it. I found out that he had a lot of cool guest musicians on it. And I kind of worked my way back into these. And I'm so glad that I did because I've absolutely been loving these. So, it took me 35 years to not have this image of Richard Marx in my head that was something that I, wasn't supposed to be listening to because he was a pop artist and stuff like that. And instead, it's actually really, really good stuff. If you're still on the fence, not giving him a chance, but you like good 80s AOR, adult contemporary rock music, Toto, bands like that, Journey, stuff like that, definitely check out Richard Marx. You may like it today, even if you didn't back then, because that's certainly what happened for me. And I picked up 2 Jim Carroll albums that have been very hard to find, for me at least, on CD. Catholic Boy being his biggest one. This one has the big hit that was on it, People Who Died. And I say big hit, I mean big hit for him, really. But most famous of all of his songs. It's popped up in so many movies. But this one actually ended up being, it's his 3rd solo album. I Write Your Name turned out to be my favorite of the 2. And I did, they didn't have the middle album, the second one, so I couldn't pick that one up. But I did go download it and stream it and stuff. And I have to say that probably like that one least. Then I like Catholic Boy, but this one here, I just had this one on repeat, playing it so many times. I also picked up a couple records. Earthquake 8.5, I think this is 75 or something, can't remember now. It's one of those ones that has nothing on the back side of it for me to be able to flip it over and quickly tell you, but I ended up really liking this. So this was something that I had eyeballed for a while. I think I mentioned when I did my New Music Now on this, and totally ended up really enjoying it. And then we got DFK, band that has Les Dudek in it, and it was just one that I didn't know that the D in here stood for him, and I'd been picking up some Les Dudek stuff, so this was very cool to get, to find it on record. It's been one that I've had a hard time finding on CD. Okay, so now on to the really big scores that I made. If you'd watched videos from the past week, then you know I just had my birthday this past Saturday. And what better thing to do on your birthday than to go to the record store? That's something I always did since I was a little kid. My mom would always, where do you want to go? What do you want to do for the day? My older brothers would want to go see a movie or something like that. I always said I wanted to go to the record store. So here I am, 47 years old, and what am I still doing? going to the record store. So I hit up Princeton Record Exchange in, of course, Princeton, New Jersey. It's about an hour and 15 minutes for me, so it's a little bit of a drive, but it's always worth it, and I made some good scores again. And kind of what's always cool is that I walk out of there knowing that I did pretty well, but not really sure how the stuff is going to click when I get home. And then I get home and listen to it, and it blows my mind. It turns out to be even better than I thought that it was. And we're going to start off one of the first ones that did that, which is Brian Robertson, Diamonds in Dirt. So Brian Robertson of Thin Lizzy, guitar player. In fact, if I open this here, there you go, you got a picture of him. Whoop. Don't like that. I'm going to have to change plastic case. It's the teeth in it aren't holding it very well, but luckily I'm sitting on carpet so it doesn't hurt it. This turned out to be really good. In fact, what was kind of cool was that a number of the songs are written by Phil Lynott and some other people. He does have some originals that are written in here, but the reinterpretations of some of these things are very cool. And it starts off rocking pretty good, sounding like what you might expect from Thin Lizzy, and it kind of verges off from there. Came out in 2011, only solo album that he's made, and I didn't pick it up at the time because it didn't sound enough like Thin Lizzy. Well, in the last 11 years or 12 years, my tastes have changed again since this back in 2011, and now I'm actually really loving the album. But when I picked it up, I knew that it wasn't kind of quote good enough for me to pick up when it originally came out, so I wasn't sure if I was really going to enjoy that or not, but it turned out to be very good. And maybe the one that I have liked more than anything, and thought it would be the one that I'd probably like the least or listen to the least, Abraxas Pool. Now, if you know anything about who this is, and or just recognize the name Abraxas in here, it's former guys of Santana back from the days of the Abraxas album and Santana 3. So we got Greg Raleigh on here and Neil Schon, both from Journey. Then we've got Michael Shreve and Michael Carabello, Joseph Aries, and Alfonso Johnson. So rounding out all guys from the Santana era of the band. And this one here has been very hard to find. It was 1997. The guys got back together and recorded this without Santana. And Neil Schon has his Journey sound still very prominent in his playing on here, which of course is the thing that really draws me into this. And yet it still has that tie to the Santana sound, that Latin African rhythm kind of sound. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed this. It's making me explore other Santana releases and stuff now. Protocol, the first version of Kansas, so still have Kerry Livgren in it, but he put back together the original version of Kansas before the one that became famous, and they recorded several albums under this name. I didn't have a jewel case edition of that, so I picked that up. This one, after I did some research on it, turned out to be very cool. The Fix, and this is selections from the forthcoming album, which was to be called Happy Landings. And it was due out in 96 or 97, or maybe it was 97, 98, I can't remember. And it never came out, it never got released. So this was an EP that they put out. Only 1,000 copies were made and sold at their concerts, featuring 5 tracks on it. The album would eventually be collected together as Happy Landings and Lost Tracks or Rare Tracks or something like that, which I actually don't have in the collection yet. So now I want to definitely track down to get the whole album, because I didn't know that it was a new album of original material at the time that didn't get released and then kind of became this lost album. I just thought it was a compilation, whereas I've got 5 of these tracks, all unique to this EP here. So very cool. I thought I was just buying some, promo album kind of thing, and wasn't really all that. And it turned out to be something very special. All right, took a chance on this one. Clocks, band from 1982, reissued on the Renaissance Records label. So I decided to take a chance. It was only $3.99. Definitely 1982 sounding, sort of new wave rock sound to it. Very good. Glad I picked it up. Listening to it, I kind of said to myself, well, now I understand why I never paid full price for it. But it is one of those things that I think will grow on me in time. And when I'm really in the mood for that early 80s sort of new wave rock sound, this is going to be a fun one to pull out. Haven't opened this one yet because I don't like to rush listening to things. but the David Johansen story from Pumps to Pompadour. And it's a Rhino Records comp. I'm looking forward to digging into it. It's just a best of, so it wasn't new stuff that I hadn't heard, but it's got New York Dolls on here solo and his Buster Poindexter act from the 80s. So it just goes through his career and the different stages and things that he's been in. And as I mentioned, I'd been into the 80s metal, so I picked up some of that. The Virgin Steel. This was a great find because I had just picked up that brand new album. So their second album, Guardians of the Flame, which actually sounds very different than the debut. And I had the debut album. I popped this on and was listening to it, and I actually thought, wow, I wonder if they actually put the wrong music on the disc, or the wrong disc is in here. And I checked the lyrics, and no, it matches up. So just was a different sound. The band has gone through different phases and things. And then Blind Illusion, the Sane Asylum. So very cool, thrash metal stuff. Les Claypool from Primus, early project from him before going on to do that. This is Combat Records' version of it. It's been reissued. If you're interested, you can get a remastered copy, but I like getting the original ones. There's just something nice about that. The way that it's packaged originally, because whenever somebody does the reissues, it's always slightly modified or shrunk in, or I don't know, cleaned up a bit, and I just like the original stuff. This was a cool one, Cosmo Alien. This album came out in 2006 and features Fran Cosmo and his son, Anthony Cosmo, on here. Anthony does most of the instrumentation and stuff, whereas Fran just sings lead, but both of those guys were members of Boston, and that's when I saw the name, and I just was sort of like, oh, I wonder if it's related to that. Had no idea it was actually going to be Fran Cosmo, so very cool there, and like I said, sounded really great. Kingdom Come, Ain't Crying for the Moon, needed this one in the collection, even though it's only a cardboard sleeve version of it. Kingdom Come stuff is very hard to come by. Basically anything Lenny Wolf did, hard to come by. So glad to get a hold of that. These were each $1.50 a piece, I think, or $2. This one too, Primal Fear, 16.66, one of the later day Primal Fear albums. It's the booklet and the CD, so I can't pop it into a jewel case, unfortunately. But very glad to have that one. Going to enjoy that one because I just got the debut and have really enjoyed that one so much. Suddenly became a fan of Ralph Sheepers, so I've got that. And then we got 6 records here to fly through real quick. Charlie, Fantasy Girls, 1976 released album. Terry Thomas on guitar and lead vocals. And boy, is this good. So I got to track this one down on CD now. But the problem is, the one that's on CD has a different album cover, and I don't like it. I want one that's like this. But at $1.99, I'll be enjoying this one for a while until I find maybe a better CD edition of it. The Fools sold out. Again, don't know much about this band here, but I owned one of their records that I took a chance on a long time ago, probably 20 years back, and enjoyed that one so much. It was one of the ones that I actually had somebody rip from a record onto a CD for me just because I enjoyed it so much. And I finally found the album that I think this came out before it. And so I wanted something more in that 80s vein. That's what this is. That was a nice find too. Face Dancer. This one here called About Face. I've got one of their albums and enjoying, my whole 70s rock thing with these guys. This one turned out to be really good. I took a chance on this one too. A group called Trickster, but not like the glam metal band. So Trickster. Without the X. And this is 1977 on Jet Records. I don't think the band ever did anything past this one album here. But, $3.99, it was just something cool to get. That's kind of how I look at records. CDs are my priority, but I will take chances on the records because they're very inexpensive, at least the ones that I go after. I don't generally do the big ones, and certainly never into the 50, 100, 150 range kind of stuff. Lucifer's Friend, $4.99. This one, Good Time Warrior, and featuring frontman for Uriah Heep doing his other project, Lucifer's Friend. Lots of these, John Lawton in there. And wrapping up with Robert Lamb, Skinny Boy. member of Chicago, doing a solo album, and actually really enjoying this. As I mentioned before, I'm not a big fan of Chicago, but I do like some of their stuff, and I just wanted to take a chance on this at $3.99 and see what solo material sounded like, because I always liked Peter Cetera solo material versus Chicago, so I thought I'd give this one a chance here and see. But all in all, there you go, 27 items. That's why this was such a long episode here. So much good stuff. I've got stuff to carry me over for quite some time now, but it's been very fun because it's also kind of created little divergences in what I'm listening to, where I could pull out any number of things, because I've got, you know, thrash and metal, and I've got classic rock and 80s rock and new wave, a little bit of everything that's been in here. So I've kind of been all over the place, but it's been a lot of fun. No shortage in new ideas springing to mind about what to listen to. All right, everyone, hopefully you enjoyed this. Certainly let me know the things you picked up from the past week. What was your big find of the last week? You can see all the stuff that I got here, and hopefully it maybe gave you some ideas as well. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.